especially, we're not going on that drilling pad, but that cellar is dug out. It's 6 foot in diameter and 6 feet deep. So somebody got to help you out. Doesn't even hurt to say that. The pumping unit is fully functional right now. We're not going to turn it on today. The weather's been so cold, I can show you what happens when we leave water in a line and don't get it all out. It's hard on valves and things when things freeze up inside of it. We've got some overhead piping over here on the battery now where the tall tower is, the vapor recovery tower. That tower has overhead piping, and remember with your hard hats on, you're about 4 inches taller than you used to be. So there's a place you can knock your head like when you're looking. Watch out for those. Pressure, we do have pressure on one line going to the separator. It's low right now. There's no hydrocarbons present. We don't have to worry about fire or explosion like we would if this were a live working tank and battery. It's pressured with nitrogen. But the nitrogen bottles feed into the line going from the pumping unit to the battery. So when we get to the battery, we've got water that we're pumping out, we've got nitrogen that we're injecting into it, and then we introduce two-phase flow to the separator. So we show how those work. So there is some pressure on the line, unlike before when everything was, we still touch it, we still do things with it. Just be aware that even though like there's a little moisture in the air, it'll condense in some of that piping, and you open a valve or something, makes it spread a little water. The lines are energized with electrical power. We've got electrical power over to the pumping unit, and then we have it over to the battery where we have a water circulation pump that we can separate the water back and bring it back to the well and reuse it. Stay hydrated even though it's cold. You still need some water. We have water and Gatorade. We don't have full catered breakfast, but we got that. And then let us know if you have any kind of trip, fall, incident, hazard, anything like that. We want to make sure you're taken care of, and then we want to make sure we've got a record of it. Okay, any questions? Dr. Eckert and I are going to split the class, and half and half. We've got a good full 2 hours of things to go through. The models, piping, we're going to do a little bit on the wellhead, just maybe for a refresher for you. And then we'll go through, starting at the wellhead, through the tank battery operations. And as we go through the tank battery operations, this is a list of the equipment that we want you to make sure you look at. Every piece of equipment will have it.
Okay. In case that Arya didn't show up, okay, you write your name over there and give it back to me. I will return it to you on Tuesday to do that sign up thing, okay? But he will come shortly, I hope.
So when we go through the battery, each piece of equipment will have a working pressure on it. And we want you to write down what that working pressure is for that vessel. 4 pieces of equipment. Another new thing that we've added that you guys haven't seen before, the compressors. We eliminated one field trip in Midland with having the compressors here. One of them is has clear plates on it where we turn the crankcase and you can see the throws on the pistons as they operate. So we're going to be looking at those when we get over to the high pressure side on the gas pad. Anything else you want to say?
You want to do inside first, or you want me to do inside? I can go outside. It's kind of raining, maybe fun.
What do you want here? Inside or outside?
Maybe outside first.
You do outside first? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. How many people do we have here?
29.
29, so that's 15.
Or maybe 30. We have one student come.
Okay, so, by the way, also OTC, just for you guys, I don't see him this morning, but We're doing some joint projects with electrical engineering. There's a senior's got to do a senior project, just in double E, just like you guys do. Huh?
To our benefit?
It's to your benefit. So what we're doing is, with one of the projects that they're doing two related to oil and gas, but with one of them, they're gonna do an automation of the battery. So everything you see out there manually, meter readings, pump run times, all this kind of stuff, we'll take and they'll design an automation system in conjunction with a company here in town that also wants to test some of their devices. That company will pay for the automation, and then we'll have like a control room eventually that would run the battery and the pumping unit and all that. So Double E gets their deal for automating it. When they leave, we have a fully automated battery with a control room. So that's down the line, but start working with other departments to do things out here as well. ConocoPhillips is having a 3-day school out here to train new production people. Lufkin Industries is having a 1-day school out here for industry people to learn how to use the automation system that we have on the pumping unit. So we're starting to get a lot more use out here, and you guys are getting a lot of benefit of what is being done. Okay, so let me count to 15, and that group will go with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so you guys load up, go with Dr. Eckert outside. The rest of you stay here until they get out.
Come here, come here, come here. You have sign up sheet? Yeah. Let them sign. Let them sign. Start with those people who stay here. This group will sign later. And stop every hour. You follow Mr. Bulat. Okay. Don't drop it. Don't drop it. Take a video of Mr. Bulat. Okay. Keep doing it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I got the address in the university website is wrong.
On the university, there is no address on the university website.
Yeah, she found it. It was wrong.
Yeah, did we give everybody map before?
Yeah, I thought it's the same thing. That it wasn't. Okay. Yeah, Auntie, do you want this?
Okay, once you get signed up, let's go out here.
Actually, I need 2 because Jasmine's on her way. She lost 2.
So you need what?
2 of those pieces of paper.
Okay.
So you work for, looks like you work for Domino's instead of Dominion. It looks like Domino's. Sorry.
Are you going to follow me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, everybody got a pen?
No.
Yeah.
Is anybody still in there? By the time today's over, in 2 days I'll have done 12 hours of stand-up labs. That may not, that's not hard on you guys, it's getting hard on me.
You gotta have some good boots.
Huh?
You gotta have some good boots.
Those boots have been around the world. They've been in offshore South Africa and on the north slope of Alaska, all over Texas. What is it? These are core samples.
From where?
So they're off a San Andreas well. They're being used, huh?
Yeah.
No, they're being used in a research project, and they'll cut and test some of it as they need to. These are slabs in here. They'll test and use what, some of it, and then it's gotta be returned. Some of it does. Some of it will keep.
Are these like debts or what are they?
Yeah, these are the top and bottom of the core, 1 foot core. And then they're marked red and black, means right and left on the core, so they can orient them. Okay, let's do a quick review on the wellheads before we start. How many of you guys are taking, like, nodal analysis?
We're taking it.
I
Okay.
think most of us.
Most of you, okay. On a pumping well, we get two flow streams out the wellhead, the gas and the oil. Where does the gas come off? Which one?
The first one.
This one?
The other.
No.
Right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the casing head, that's open to the annulus, and we get a gas stream coming off the casing head. The oil and water, the liquid, should have been separated down whole if we did the right kind of gas separation, right? Coming up the tubing string through, what's that? Got a name.
The pump.
Pumping
yeah.
tee, yeah.
Pumping tee. Okay.
Comes up the pumping tee and then goes here. What's this?
Stuffing box.
Stuffing box, right. So that's got the pack off in here. That forces the liquids off the rod and down into the pumping tee, joins this line. The lines join together and go to the battery. So we went to great trouble to separate oil and gas down at the bottom of the hole. And then we get it right to the top and we put them back together. Why?
Pressures? Around 1.9.
1 line chipper.
Yeah, one line. If we didn't recombine them, we'd have to run 2 lines back to the battery. And remember, you're going to have wells that maybe are 2 miles away from a tank battery. On the wells that are drilled in the higher pressure unconventionals, some of them will put a back pressure valve here, and that's what this is. To hold back pressure on this column here. It's still very gassy, even though they've tried to separate it. And some folks, I don't know if this has been proved technically one way or the other, hold some back pressure to try to get a better liquid loading in their tubing. And I don't understand the theory, but when this model was put together, they built so many of them like that, they just went ahead and put one in here. So you won't see this configuration on a lot of heads. Okay, that sounds real basic, but that's where we're starting with when we go to a facility. Some companies include the wellhead design as part of the facility, especially when you're doing high pressure gas wells, and we'll see out there. Okay, chokes. How many of you seen the inside of a choke?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Think you did? What does a choke look like inside?
What kind?
Huh?
What kind?
Like
Like a needle, right?
goes in and
Like a
out.
needle, all right. So this is a variable choke. We can open and close it, and these are like the ones we'll see on a wellhead or that we'll see in a line heater. We've done a lot of talking about line heaters lately, right? So all we're doing is down there is a receptacle shaped the same as this. And all we're doing when we adjust that choke is move this up or down in that
Insert.
base, in that seat. And that restricts flow. And that's our primary purpose, is to control flow with the choke. And then what happens is we start choking a gas stream. If I start screwing down on it, make it tighter and tighter. Yeah, I raise the pressure and consequently it gets colder. What's that effect called?
JT
Huh?
cooling effect.
JT cooling effect. JT stands for what?
Jules Thompson.
Joule-Thomson effect. Okay. So that all happens right there in that choke body. Okay? Enough for wellheads. Let's look at valves and piping before we go out. We don't really cover everything in facilities, but some of this need to know. We'll see a lot of these. Every vessel will have one that's a pressure controller. And we can adjust these, and when we adjust them, we tighten down on the screw that's connected to the spring. All we're doing with that spring is pushing down on a diaphragm, and as pressure is coming in the pipe, it acts on the bottom of the diaphragm and it'll want to lift it. And however much lift I get is proportionate to how much tension I put on that spring. So as I tighten down on this spring, I compress it. And this little one shows it a little better. I just push that spring down tighter and tighter and tighter. As I do, there's not much spring left in it. It becomes very hard. So it's going to take more pressure to open the seat, right? So down increases the pressure. When I turn to the left, I'm taking tension off of that spring, and I'm changing the spring constant. And then it can lift that diaphragm, and that's what's controlling pressure on every vessel out there, or on every vessel in a battery, wherever we're at. Pressure regulator. Okay, valves. What kind of valve is this?
Check valve.
One way.
Check valve. One way. British call it a non-return valve. And this one is a flapper inside. It's tight. Inside is a flapper that's hinged. You hear that? As I'm swinging it, if flow is coming this way, it's going to push that flapper up. If flow tries to come this way, what happens?
That closes.
Doesn't close. Okay. So every place we have pieces of pipe or vessels connected together, we need to prevent that backflow into the system or to another part. So we'll put a check valve in there. There's other types of checks. These are the most commonly used. This one shows it a little better. It's really loose in there. Where it'll swing open and closed. This one was on a line out here in the battery. For about 3 nights in a row, we had 20 below zero weather. And I drained the vessels, got water out of the system, all except for one section of pipe.
Damn.
Water backed up on this section,
Expanded.
and this is the result of water expansion ice on a valve that's rated to 300 psi. So if the lines are out and exposed, fresh water, this is what can happen.
Can I see that?
Yeah. Okay, what kind of valve is this here in the vise?
Ball valve?
Is that a ball?
It's a ball valve. Yeah. Okay, so which way is it right now?
It's open.
It's open,
And then closed.
closed. Okay, what are you actually opening and closing when you do that?
The ball inside. kind
Yeah,
of-
it looks like a ball, and you can see it when you turn it there.
It's like a sphere with a.
So you see how that looks like a ball and it rotates closed? That's a ball valve, and we use those for a positive shutoff. So they ought to be either open or closed. You know,
It's
if I
halfway.
huh?
If it's halfway, that messes up the valve, doesn't it?
Yeah, you could, if you have a high enough velocity, it can cause some erosion. If we try to put back pressure on something or throttle the valve, we need to either use a choke, because as we move this ball, it's you can keep closing it and closing it, and if you look at the pressure drop across it, it's not changing till that valve is almost closed to get a restriction to increase the pressure. So we could go like this, and you're going to be doing this and trying to increase the pressure. It's not the valve you want to use. This one is either open or closed. If we want to control flow, we go to a valve like this.
Isn't that kind of like a choke?
Well,
Is that needle as well inside?
so come over here and you can see inside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like a wall.
Stand back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it at
And see this thing here. Yeah, you can't see over my head either. So this is called a gate
Here, right
valve.
there.
And this valve body is open, and as you crank in that handle and it pulls it out, the gate, say it's fully closed like this. As he cranks the handle open, it pulls the gate out of there. So the gate's really like this, the flow going that way, it'll stop the flow. And with this one, if you look as you do that slowly, with every turn, you're moving incrementally across there. And so this one, if we plotted the pressure drop versus the valve position, it would be almost on a linear line. Crank it closed, more pressure drop. Another crank, more pressure drop. This is exactly what's on the master valves on the wellheads. It's just a lot bigger. So they all work on that principle right there. You probably won't see those in a tank battery configuration too often, but you will on the wellheads. Most of the time in the tank battery, we either want it off or on, wherever we're going. Pipe fittings. What is this?
Nipple.
It's a nipple, and by definition, that's just a short piece of pipe. Anything shorter than a full joint. What lengths do pipe come in? Line pipe.
20.
16 foot in the hardware store, but most of the time in our oil field applications, they're 20 to 25 feet long. They can be any diameter, but these short pieces are called nipples. This one has what kind of connection? It's threaded. This is also a pipe nipple with what kind of connections?
Is that internal thread?
What's this one?
That's threading.
Okay, so any threaded of the same pipe diameter just screws right in, right?
Yeah, and then that's a, what is that, male and female end?
No, that's like
Okay, this is called a groove connection. And then any of you work in the field might have heard of a Victaulic? No?
what was that?
A Victaulic, V-I-C-T-A-U-L-I-C. That's a brand name of this clamp that fits on. I don't know if you noticed over here, we have a Victaulic clamp on this pieces that this reduces down from here to a smaller size. What do you call that piece that reduces down?
Swedge.
Swedge. Can you spell it?
S-W-E-D-G-E?
No.
No. No, oh, S-W-A-G-E.
Yeah, it's got a different spelling. Swedge. In West Texas swedge. So that's that pipe, when it reduces down, it's called a swedge. But on a connection like this one, you unbolt these, that rubber gasket that's in there goes around the pipe, and then on the other piece, on the other side, you got the pipe you're joining to or the valve. Put the rubber gasket on, tighten the clamp down, and you got a seal. These are more expensive than the threaded. We've used, you'll see a lot of Victaulic out in the battery because we think we want to be changing out, testing other equipment, doing things like that. These are a lot easier to work with. I was able to change this out on the line by myself without too much trouble. It was cold, but wasn't much trouble. So these are grooved connections on these pieces of pipe. This is what? A T. Easy to remember by the shape, right? And this is what?
45.
45 what?
Elbow.
45 L. Or an elbow or an L. And then this is what kind?
90 L.
90. So that means it makes a 90-degree turn if we're going to go up 90 degrees. This one only goes 45. And we've got reasons for wanting to do that. And again, we'll see those out there. This one is grooved, this one's threaded. What's this?
Hammer union.
Hammer union. When we're using threaded pipe, that won't work. That will. When we're using threaded pipe, we've got to have some place, you can't move the vessel apart and then bring it back and screw it in there. So we got to put this all together. And so this comes apart pretty easily. It's got big threads on it. And just a few turns and it's off. And then when we make it back up, hit it with a hammer a few times, So that's a hammer union. Makes a good tight fit. It goes apart easy. You see these on well heads because the first thing the pulling unit's got to do when they rig up on the well is get the pipe out of the way. So we give them places where we tell them it's okay to beat on it. You know, if we got meters, other things like that on it, we don't want them right here. And so you'll see the wellhead rigged up with those hammer unions at some distance away from anything delicate. Because pulling unit operators aren't necessarily delicate people. And then what is this? It's what?
Flange.
Yeah, it's called a flange. On a lot of vessels, you'll have a flange connection. On compressors, you have flanges. You have to know the diameter of the pipe you want. You have to know the pressure rating of the flange. And you need to know what kind of connection you want. So this is 1.5 inches, 150 ASA threaded flange. 150 ASA is American Society of, can't remember what the designation is, but 150 means it's good for 150 pounds of pressure. So you go 150, 300, 600, 900, 1200. On the ASA rating of the flange, 4 holes is pretty easy. That's generally a 150 pound flange. You'll see bigger flanges out there on the vessels. We can either thread connect or we can weld into a flange. And that's the other way of joining pipe together, or another way to do it. Questions on plumbing? Okay, let's look at vessels on the models here. In the field, you're going to have to know what kind of fluid stream you've got coming into your vessel. There's several ways to separate. They're all separators of one sort or another. There's lots of ways to separate oil and gas and water. But you need to know what your well stream coming in is. Is it a lot of oil and a little bit of gas? Has it got any water at all in it? Is it a high gas well with a little bit of condensate production? That question has to be answered first. That's your basis for design for what you're going to hook up and work on. So we've been looking at separators recently in class. Let's look, turn around behind you. This is what?
No, it's not. It's just a vertical separator.
Yeah.
Low pressure separator.
There's no heat applied. It's a low pressure separator. 3-phase or 2-phase?
2.
Why do you say 2?
Because there's no way of settling out the densities aside from like once they're down here, the gas will just rise up and the liquids will settle to the bottom.
Yeah.
Water and gas and oil.
Right, so the water and oil will stay combined together.
And the gas will come out.
Gas will come out the top. Here or here?
Where's the
The middle one.
middle one?
The other way.
Here. Is this what? Which one?
Depends where the
I would say the
mist
big
extractor
one.
is.
I would say the big one is the one for the gas. The small
Yeah,
one's
it's
for like,
this.
probably like a meter.
It's this one.
Okay, why'd you say it, Katie?
There's a mist extractor.
Okay, yeah, if you come over and look, there's a mist extractor in the top. Have a look. Everybody needs to see a mist extractor one time. What that is mesh that's got a lot of surface area in it. So as that gas rises out of that vessel, those particles are going to accumulate on that mist extractor. And that's going to let that liquid fall down into the vessel. Our mist extractor in this vessel is all right here. It's just right under this part of the separator. So if that's the mist extractor, what would this be for?
For the
Pressure
pressure
valve.
relief.
Pressure relief valve.
But what about this one? Oh, that's for the pressure. Oh no, that's for here. All right. It was just kind of there.
Are you on the petrol bowl team?
I'm not. No. What is that?
Okay. So the, by the way, what do you call this?
Pull up.
It's a pipe plug. And that looks like about a 1/8 pipe plug. Huh?
Pipe.
Pipe. Yeah. Y'all could be qualified plumbers after this thing. Okay, so the gas, where do we bring the production from the well into a separator?
Probably.
Stephanie, where would you do it?
You can do it.
here.
Right there, right. We're gonna bring it in high. Not at the very top, but up on the side. And on the inside, what do you see inside the separator?
The baffle?
Diverter.
Is there a baffle in there?
You see like a diverter. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's this baffle here.
yeah, that's the diverter plate. Can you all see over there?
In my head.
Yeah, in your head, okay. That's that diverter plate. And what's the purpose of the diverter plate?
To separate, create momentum to separate the liquids.
Yeah, liquids are gonna go down, the gas is gonna wanna rise up. Momentum. It's also, very simply, change of direction. Okay, so we got, change of direction, now we've got the body of the separator to work with. And this smaller separator has a certain cross-sectional area to it, right? And that's gonna determine what?
The capacity.
It's gonna do what? Velocity. Velocity is dependent on the area, cross-sectional area that it flows through. So the bigger we make that separator, the slower the velocity, the more gas it can handle. Gas will go to the top, liquids will fall to the bottom. Notice there's another plate here. On top of that plate will be a float. And that float will control the action. Here we go, need help. Hold the valve. Okay, gave it away, it's a valve. But as that, hold it tight. Hold it tight, got it? As that float goes down, it's gonna actuate the valve and open the valve. So that means liquid then can come out down here. This valve is gonna be attached here, the float's gonna be attached here. As the float moves, it's just changing the action in that valve. Okay?
Can we see the float or there's not?
No, there's not a float in here,
Okay. It's that little. Oh, like a toilet.
like the toilet bowl,
Okay.
like the old-fashioned toilet bowls. The new ones, it rides up and down a column instead of hanging swing. Got to keep up with the technology, man. Okay, so that's the ins and outs of the separator. When we see this on the vessel, represents what?
Level. Fluid level.
Yeah, it's a sight glass. It's going to show. It's going to be glass. It's going to be connected internally. We can see what's inside, where the liquid levels are.
Do we usually have two of them, or what?
Huh?
Do we usually have two?
Yeah, you'd want two here, because here you're going to see what fluid you got in the, where it is in the bottom, and then this one straddles where the float is, so you'd know what level you're maintaining before you dump.
Okay.
And it's a little more obvious on the bigger vessel. What is this? Yeah, all that's for is to get in there and clean out the vessel. It's called a manway. Mm-hmm. And you have to unbolt it. And with some of it, you just have tools you can reach in. Larger tanks, you actually go inside the vessel. And that's called a confined entry. It's a special procedure and process for going in there. You have to be trained to do that. When I was roustabout in one summer, they just took the hatch off. They said, those tanks have been sitting there a while. You guys just get in there and clean it out. 4 of us college students just getting with it, you know. We were raking up rust and dirt and dust and just covered head to toe. OSHA would no way let that happen today. Okay, we've got gas separated, and gas went from here to where?
Alright. To the sales line.
Yeah, to the sales line. This is ready to sell. Suppose it comes off here. The liquid, we've got oil and water mixed. Where do we go with it? Okay, we got choices. This looks like a 3-phase vessel almost, but it's it really does separate 3-phase, but it's called a free water knockout.
Okay.
With the free water knockout, we bring the fluid in from the separator. It's got a diverter plate right here. So it's a little ways down. This is called the shell, and these end pieces, sometimes referred to as a dome. And when they measure the height of a separator, we're going weld to weld, or shell length. We don't usually count the dome. as part of the height of the separator.
Length or
Huh?
like the length?
The length, yeah. So this separator, if I was asking you how tall it was, I'd measure from here to here, not including the head. So this one measures from there to there. That's the effective length of the vessel. And when they make these quarter scale, this gets exaggerated a little bit. They just can't squeeze everything down exactly to scale. So the fluid would come in here. Water in a free water knockout, if it's not tied up in an emulsion, should drop down. You got a lot of area, a lot of cross-sectional area. Slow down the velocity, let the water have time to drop. So this weir or plate, water would go down, oil would be skimming across the top of it. And you'll have to get back and look up under there. And if you look back up under there, in this section of the vessel, you'll see a piece of construction in there. They've come out and built like a box, and that's called a bucket. Inside the vessel is an oil bucket. So as that oil is skimmed off higher in the top, it'll spill into this bucket. In here, we've got a float again. We've got our sight glass, see where we're at. And with this float, we'll control when we discharge the oil. And the oil that comes out of here still probably has some water in it. So it's not free water. The free water went out the bottom and comes out here. This emulsion has to go somewhere else for treating. Gas, like everything else, just comes off the top. We've got places for gas supplies, pressure gauges, temperatures, all along here, but one of these will go to gas sales.
So why do you, so the different sizes just depends on how much you're
What I'm
trying.
going to use it for.
Okay. What would you use this really small one for?
Gas supply to valves. When we get out there, one of the valves we'll see has a float that actually moves a gas regulator that goes to the valve that pushes on a diaphragm and opens the dump valve. Instead of having the mechanical dump, we've got a gas actuated dump. This manway plate here on a free water knockout is also where the float goes. You actually take that off
With the float.
and with the float, and its float goes inside that ring. But it's a big piece of iron. Water dumps out. That water should be clean enough, free enough to go to the water tank. The emulsion, though, has to be treated further, and that's where we come to a heater treater. What's a dead giveaway? A vessel that's got a heater in it.
Furnace.
Yeah, the stack. I know Dr. Eckert referred to it as a chimney. It functions as a chimney, but in the oil field, the way we do it down here, that's a stack, treater stack. And the other thing that this one's missing is a nest or a cover to keep the birds from nesting in the stack during the summertime when the treater's turned off. Then you go to turn it on in the winter, and they built a bird nest up there, and they plugged this whole thing, and it backfires when you try to light it. Okay, where do we bring the fluid into a treater? Where would you bring the fluid into the treater?
Bring it right to this? Near your head.
What's that?
Oh no, it's from the, yeah, where we can point it at the very top.
Okay, so we haven't looked at the inside of a treater yet. Come around to where it's open. In the treater, in the very top section, this plate will be welded all the way around the inside, and it'll isolate this top section. So as we bring our fluids in up here, gas will separate. We go out, it's got a mist extractor up high. It's got a place for a safety relief valve. The gas will go off the top of the treater, just like gas came off the other two vessels. They'll be tied together, and they'll go to the gas sales line. The liquids will spill into this tube right here. And from that tube, it will carry the oil and water all the way down to the bottom of the treater. In the bottom of the treater, we've got a camera. We've got a vessel or a piece of pipe that comes in, bends around, and goes back up the stack. What do we call this?
That's the
Fire tube, exactly. Okay, in the top of the fire tube is the exhaust stack, is the exhaust stack. In the bottom will be a burner, just like a stovetop burner. Takes a few ounces of pressure and it fires up. It'll get up to like 2,500 degrees on the tip of that flame. But as we bring the oil and water down to the bottom, it comes here, hits another diverter plate. Oil and water floats across this. The water will separate with the addition of the heat. The oil is going to continue to float up. The water will maintain a level so that the fire tube always stays covered with water. One's a safety consideration, the other one is a transfer of heat to the fluid as it comes by. So water level would be maintained in here somewhere. Oil level would come up here and would go out here. Water comes off the very bottom of the treater, and at this point the oil should be ready to sell. That ought to be quality oil. What determines the sellability of the oil?
the
BS&W, bottom sediment and water. And it's got to be like a tenth of a percent or less, usually, is the pipeline spec.
So the fluids that are coming in at the inlet of the heater treater is the oil that was in the oil bucket, right?
Yeah.
So how do you know that oil bucket, that fluid has enough water to always maintain above the fire tube?
By making that a little inefficient.
Okay.
I can carry my water level where I make sure I always carry over a little water.
Okay.
But that's a good point. It really is. There are some that have just a little bit of water in it. You've always got to make sure this has water in it.
Okay.
So let it carry over a little water. It's all right.
Would it ever make sense to inject that?
Not really.
No?
That'd be. Yeah, I'd probably do a chemical treatment to separate my oil and water if I had that, as opposed to maintaining this vessel just for that. Probably do it cheaper chemically. When the water goes out, it exits at the very bottom of the treater, right down here at this pipe. So why don't we just run the water to the tank there? We bring it up. And this is called the water leg. Comes up the water leg, and this smaller pipe is concentric inside this increased diameter here. At the top of this pipe, but inside here, with this handle, we move a weir, a dam, up and down. And it determines where the water will spill out and go back down. And by doing that, we set the water level in the treater. So we bring it all the way up. Now we've got a hydrostatic column of water that's regulated by this weir. It goes down this outside pipe, connects here, and goes to the water tank. Over here, I've got an oil column that also has to come out, and its level is controlled by where I maintain my water interface. So I've got a water column here. Now I've got an oil column here. The oil column's got to be taller, doesn't it? Why is that? Difference in the density, the specific gravity of the fluids. And so I've got to have a bigger column of oil to get that liquid to come out and dump down. So I dump my oil, dump my water, dump my gas. Then inside here are two little tubes. One goes through a hole in this plate and just up to the open area here. That equalizes the pressure through the entire vessel. There's another tube that's open at the top, and it comes out and it comes into the water leg. That equalizes the pressure in the water leg. So now this vessel may be operating at 20, 30 psi, but the only thing that determines the fluid level is the hydrostatic head of the fluids, because the gas pressure is equalized across all of it. We can just kind of like cancel it out of the equation all the way across. Questions? So we can have a separator, a free water knockout, a treater, And by the way, every one of these vessels will have a tag on it with that pressure.
Does he want us to write down the working pressure on these or the ones outside?
The one outside.
Okay.
So we can use this one by itself. We could use the separator by itself. We could come directly into the water knockout and bypass the separator. We've got all these combinations. So in your senior design project, just because you learned about all this stuff, don't try to put it in your battery if you don't need it. You got to know what kind of conditions you got coming in. We got one more vessel behind us. Looks like this big tank. And what would that be?
Gun barrel.
That's a gun barrel. In the gun barrel, fluid comes in the top. Gas is going to escape out. We'll take it off. Hello. The fluid that comes in here is going to go all the way down inside, and at the bottom is a baffle or a spreader plate that distributes the oil and water across the full diameter of the tank. Because with this, there's no heat. We're just dependent on a lot of retention time. When we go out to,
Just the momentum of the water hitting
just
the
all you're doing is velocity of the particles.
Yeah.
You're getting this spread out across a 15 to 20 foot diameter tank. When we go out to the Oxy, we'll see some of their field operations. They use gun barrels almost exclusively. They've done away with all their heater treaters because they think it's more energy efficient to use this.
So you want to break down the emulsion? So the vertical, the terminal velocity we're talking about. So whatever time you get, it might be so high, okay, that this thing will let you to have that retention time for the emulsion separation. So
And we might add a little motion breaker to it sometimes too. When it gets very, very cold, these become less efficient.
Which did you say was the inlet?
The inlet is up here.
Oh, yeah.
Everything goes in up there. And then the water comes out the bottom just like it did on the heater treater. And here's our water leg. Same type deal. We got and they'll call these a grasshopper. You can see this over here.
And the oil's up there on the right.
And then the oil comes out over here. Okay? So these are gun barrels. This is a scaled down model of a 400 barrel gun barrel. Our tanks out there are 300s. The big tall ones you see, 25 feet tall, those are 500 barrel tanks. These are generally, in practice, 1,000 to 1,500.
So don't we usually use this only if we have a lot of water?
If you have a lot of water, very, very little gas, fact of the matter, you may put a separator ahead of this. But you got all that water volume you're handling. And that's what Oxy's got, is a lot of old floods where they're bringing that together. Okay, questions on any of this so far?
Nope.
Okay, we'll buckle up and go outside. Cowboy up. Yeah. Well, you want your water level down here, so it should be a sight glass. It's going to regulate water level.
But you gotta make sure.
Just above the, yeah.
Okay. What is this picture? This section?
This is bigger around, so this tube can go up inside it, up into here. So we get that water spillover into it.
Okay.
And then this weir control is going to regulate where the water spills over.
Like, how does it, like, determine the level? That's what I don't understand yet.
Okay.
I mean, it's... Yeah.
So inside the treater, you've got a column of oil and water that'll raise to a certain height. And then in here, all you have is a water column. This water column has to equal the pressure of this oil water column in here. The higher I raise this, the higher I've got to raise this. So if I bring this down to here, then I can lower my oil level. So you're regulating everything with the hydrostatic head of the water.
Yeah. I guess my question was, like, what does this, like, look like physically, like a weir in a pipe within a pipe?
A pipe within a pipe?
Yeah. Like, so that it can flow over.
Okay.
It's not like you're extending the pipe or something, right? Or-
Yeah, it's like you're extending the
Oh,
pipe.
is it? Okay.
But you're actually doing it with a portable piece in there that can
Okay.
move up and down.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
Okay, everybody need restroom break, water, anything? Do what?
I'll get you.